Good afternoon, and welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to our Direwolf 20 1.10 modded Minecraft Let's Play series. So I haven't worked up the nerve to fix this yet. I don't know. I'm kind of debating, because I'm still getting plenty of blood essence. It's not an issue with that little bit missing, but plus I'm kind of nervous about going down in there. But anyways, today what I want to do is I want to get into Psi a little bit. I know I had a suggestion on the last video about getting into it. That was actually my intended plan in the last episode, but then I changed because I didn't want to do Blood Magic episode and then immediately go back into Psi, for those of you that aren't as interested in magic. Though I will say that Psi is more, it's like right in the middle of tech and magic. You know, it kind of falls in that. It kind of reminds me of technomancy or something, you know, to that effect. So, anyways, we're going to go ahead and start jumping into Psi today. And the first thing that we're going to need is going to be our CAD assembler. This is very, very easy to make if you have pistons. There we go. And so let's go ahead and grab this CAD assembler. Now, in addition, to get started, you're also going to need an iron CAD assembly. This is your starting CAD assembly, also very, very cheap. Now later on we can make better, you know, better guns and everything. This ivory Psi metal and ebony Psi metal and everything, these are much better. Like, if you notice, you can look at the component type or look under the component type and you'll see the efficiency and the potency. The iron CAD is only a 70 efficiency with 100 potency. Gold, of course, is 65 and 150, all the way up to the ivory, which is 95 and 320. So once you get to the end, the ebony and ivory, you kind of just choose, because you have the ebony that's a potency of 350. It's 30 higher than the potency of the ivory, but the ivory does have 5 more efficiency. So it kind of comes down to a choice at that point. So anyways, now that we have our assembly and our assembler, let's set these up. For right now, I'm just going to put them in here. So that way, because we're working kind of in this area, and I'll end up moving them. But what we can do is we can put in our iron CAD assembly. Oops. And you'll see some stats here. You have efficiency and potency, and then your complexity, projection, bandwidth, sockets, and overflow. There's nothing on those. We'll get into those later on once we have parts to add to the assembly. But if you take a look here at like the CAD batteries and the CAD core and all that, those require what's called Psi Dust, and we don't have the ability to craft that just yet. So we're going to start with just a basic CAD, which is a casting assistant device. You can hold shift and look at the stats, but as you notice, we have no additional equipment on it, so it's basically just efficiency and potency. So we'll go ahead and take that. And so now we have this pistol. And so now that we have this, what we can do is we can actually make Psi Dust with this. So, oh, I did forget to mention, if you're not holding anything and you hit C, you can open up the Psi tutorial kind of thing. And there's a lot to read. Basically, this is just introducing you to the mod, telling you to get your assembly and the assembler, and then make some Psi Dust. But there'll be some more stuff with that very, very soon. So what we can do is we can take some redstone, and we can take it over here and just say, drop it on the ground. And then what we can do is we can look at the redstone with our casting assistant device, right click it, and we'll get ourselves some of this Psi Dust. And you also notice that we got a level up. And now there's like this nifty bar on the right hand side. And if you throw down your gun, if you're not carrying a gun, you're not going to have that bar. It's only for if you're carrying the gun. And basically that is your like Psi power. I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head. But now if we hit C, if we're not holding anything, if you're holding the casting assistant device, it's going to pull up this little gun GUI, which we'll get into that more once we actually have some spells to use with it. But if we open this up, you'll see that tutorial 1 requirements is level 1. And you can see that we unlock a trick debug and a selector caster. And we can hit the check mark here to learn it. So let's do that. And you'll notice that we get this really long wall of text. Now, if you've never played with Psi, I do suggest you read through this. I've played around with it in a creative world and stuff. It's a lot of fun, but there is a lot to learn with this mod. Because basically, it's a lot like if you've ever played with like Ars Magica or the Blood Magic spell creation, it's similar to that. You know, we're going to be making spells with it and everything. But to me, it reminds me more of programming than those do. So it's more like programming and you create a spell. So it's very, very interesting. So anyways, now that we have that Psi Dust, let's go ahead and we can actually upgrade our gun. So there's a few different things here that we can make. We can make a CAD core. And right now, like the overclocked, you'll notice it takes Psi metal ingots. We can't make these as of yet. There's no way starting out that you're going to be able to make those. So we're going to have to start with the basic CAD core. If you notice, it has a complexity of 10 and a projection of 1. It is an upgrade. We'll go ahead and snag it. And then there's also a CAD socket. If you take a look, this increases your bandwidth and your sockets. So starting out, you're going to have 0 sockets. That means you can equip 0 spells to your gun. But now that we have some of that Psi Dust, we can get this CAD socket, which will allow us to have up to 4 spells socketed. Now there's also a CAD battery, which has overflow, which we'll get into more into overflow down the road, but we'll go ahead and make one just because we can. And keep in mind, most of the secondary tiers require Psi metal ingots, and then there's also Psi gems, so which that'll be your last 2 tiers. And then we can also craft one of these colorizers. Now basically what these do is they're just going to allow you to color your gun based on your personal preference. I'm going to go with the purple one, I do believe. And I'm going to need some purple dye. Give me 1 second to go grab some of that. And then we can get our purple CAD colorizer. And like I said, I mean this, if you hold shift on it, there's nothing, it's just a colorizer. And it's going to allow us to adjust the color of our gun. And so let's go ahead and get ourselves another CAD assembly. We're going to make a new gun. We're not really interested in that old one anymore. Basically just Psi metal and we're done with it. And so we're going to throw all this stuff in here. We'll add the CAD socket, which adds our bandwidth and our sockets. Our battery, which gives us some overflow. Our colorizer, which if you notice, it's kind of hard to tell there, but you'll notice that blue, like if you're looking at this gun here, you'll see the blue stripe that runs down the side. That's what changes color. So you'll notice it turns purple there in the thumbnail. Then we'll add our CAD core. And so if we hold shift on this, you'll notice that it shows all the stuff that we have equipped to it and the effects on stats that they give. So we'll go ahead and snag that, and now we have this fancy purple one. And this old CAD, we don't really need it anymore. So we'll throw that down. We don't really want it. And down there you'll see that the overflow just filled up. We have an extra 100 Psi built up. So now that we have a better CAD, we can work on making a spell. Now, whenever you level up, you're going to see a couple things down here. That's things that you unlocked in order to make spells with. Just like how in Ars Magica, you had to unlock things to progress. Now, I will say that if you've played with Psi on a pack, if I recall, you can opt to just go ahead and level up and skip all this tutorial level stuff and just jump on up to where you were. So you can skip through all this and just be pretty much have everything unlocked and whatnot. But basically it's limited so that you kind of have to learn your way through it. And anything down here that you unlock, if you see like a red line around it, basically in order to level up again, you're going to have to create a spell and cast a spell that uses you know, whatever that red line is. Like for example, here it's numbers, and over here it's add motion. And if we pop down, like for example, way down here, there's a lot of things that we're going to start unlocking. Even as early as, I want to say, yeah, these right here, you unlock a lot of things. So the first few levels are really just kind of getting acquainted with the mod, and then we'll get into a bit more interesting stuff before too long. So anyways, the next thing that we're going to want is a spell programmer. Very easy to make, some iron Psi metal, or Psi dust. Then let's also go ahead and get ourselves a spell bullet. These are also very, very cheap to make. And so now we can set up our spell programmer. We'll put it right over here next to our CAD assembler. And if we take a look in here, we've got this very interesting GUI. So basically you can see your CAD right here that we have. And if you come down and you click on a spot, and you right click it, you can add those things that we unlocked earlier. And you'll notice there's a search option. It's not as useful right now, but down the road you're going to have a lot of different effects that your spells can have. different ways to adjust them and everything. So searching them will become more and more useful as time goes on. So anyways, we basically just need to make a debug, a spell using debug to go ahead and level up and move on to the next bit of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to select debug, and basically debug, whenever you use it on something, it's going to show you some information about that entity or that item that you target with it. And then what we'll do is we'll say we'll do selector and caster, because you're going to have to give this a target. So if you take a look here, we can set the target with these arrows here based on if the target's going to be above, to the left or right, or below. So we want it to be the selector caster, so we're going to target that, and you'll notice that now, like if I was to say down, you're going to say that it says compilation errored. Basically it just tells you that there's a parameter, and it's going to have a mark here, this little red lines there. It's going to say this is targeting an empty cell. It doesn't have a target. It can't be made as a spell because it doesn't actually fit any kind of workable criteria. So we'll go ahead and set the target up here, the selector caster, and we'll get into numbers later on and everything. And right here you can see the complexity, amount of actions, the potency, the cost, the protection, the bandwidth, which none of that really matters. This spell is very basic and isn't all that crazy useful, I guess. And then we can name it, so we'll just call it debug spell. And then what we can do is we can take our spell bullet and just right click it. And you'll notice there it says debug spell, and you can see like a little screen that shows you what your spell layout is and all that good stuff. So now if we take a look at this spell bullet, it's now renamed to debug spell. And so now what we can do, now that we have that spell, is we can come over to our CAD assembler and put our casting assistant device in there. And you'll notice that this has 4 sockets. That matches up with the 4 sockets that we unlocked with our basic CAD socket. So what it allows us to do is it allows us to take these spell bullets and place them into our casting assistant device. So now we have a casting assistant device. I can't remember, yeah, it says spell selected debug spell. So if you wanted to switch the spells, you can open up this radial menu with C. Now that we have some sockets, it actually makes a little bit more sense. And you can switch between different spells that you have equipped with your gun. Now right now we only have the debug spell equipped, so we're going to select that. And if we were to right click, you'll notice that we get some information, entity player to Asgaard 401, tells our coordinates and everything there in chat, and we also leveled up. Now you'll notice that on the right, our available amount of Psi has went from 200 to 400. Every time that you level, you're going to get an additional 200 Psi in order to use, because whenever you start using spells that actually have a complexity and everything, they're going to use some of that Psi. So, for example, this one doesn't really use anything. But you'll notice as I fly around, I can debug myself and see that my X, Y, and Z coordinates will change and all that stuff. But anyways, it's not really that interesting of a spell. You might use it occasionally later on to debug things, but generally I haven't personally used it all that much myself. But you'll notice that we did level, and so we meet the requirements for the tutorial number 2, and we will unlock constants, numbers, and connectors. So let's go ahead and hit learn. But anyways, there's a lot of text here that you can read through if you so desire. And honestly, it's very useful. There's some really good stuff in there. Alright, so now we have some new spell effects that we can use. So what we'll do is go ahead and delete that. And we can add, say, like this connector. And if you notice right here, you can set the target and it's going to switch, where that connector attaches to. And the line here basically acts as a wire between, say, trick debug and the connector. And so then what we can do is, right here, we can say selector is caster. And it makes it work. Now, if we were to turn this connector, it's no longer going to attach, so it's no longer going to be a viable spell. And then, just a heads up, by the way, if you have something, like, let's say, the constant number and you want to delete it, just hold shift and right click, and that's going to remove, whatever you were targeting. But anyways, let's go ahead and we're going to add in a number variable. And right here, now you can connect your number to your debug spell. So that's what this does, and we're going to attach it to this number, and we're going to set the number to, say, 2. for example. And we'll go ahead and change this name to new, there we go, to new debug spell. By the way, you can't type when you have a number selected because it's trying to type the numbers, but you're trying to type with letters. And so basically, if that happens, if you can't type down here, just change your target. But anyways, we'll change that to new debug spell. And what we can do is we can actually pull out the bullet from this CAD and just right click it and update it with the new debug spell. And so now we have access to the new debug spell. And now if we were to use this, you'll notice that we leveled up, and right there it says 2 entity players. Numbers in that regard are useful because they're going to label what you're using, but we'll get more into that in the future. Oh, I bet my quarry used up all the power. Whoops, I wasn't paying attention to it. And by the way, it ran this ran all those crystals out. I think I ended up having like 3 or 4. I think I ended up making like 3 or 4, and it ran through those like it was nothing. I mean, that's the thing. Deep resonance, I don't think, for like a serious thing where you got quarries and stuff running, I don't think deep resonance is all that strong for the material costs and the overhead and stuff that it requires. So just my personal opinion on it. These. Okay, so we're back in business. I had to shut down a couple things to get it kind of kick-started because the farms needed power and all that stuff. But yeah, so I mean, deep resonance, I don't know that the overhead of resources is really, like, I feel like that mod needs balancing, because if you have things like big reactors and stuff, or even immersive engineering can outperform it like fairly easily, and some auto farms and you're set. So that's the issue. I think we're gonna have to upgrade power again fairly soon, I think. But anyways, if we open this up, we did level up again. You'll notice this time we have an Enderman. 2 Ender Pearls, I'll take it. Anyways, we unlocked Add Motion and Entity Look. This is when we start getting into vectors and stuff. It's fairly interesting, and you start, I believe it's the 4th level, yeah, is when we're going to get Explode. So this first part is fairly boring, honestly, but if you guys have been through this before, I do apologize. But anyways, so we have the Add Motion and the Entity Look spell components now. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and the only thing I think we have to add to this one is spell motion, but we're going to cover both of them. So we're going to make just a brand new spell here, and we're going to say that add motion, and you can set a target, a direction, and a speed. So first up, we're going to set a target, and right now I think the only target we have is the caster. So we're going to have to use the caster for that. We're going to set the target to up. So the caster is our target. Now, next up, we're going to need to set a direction. And for the direction, let's go ahead and say Entity Look. So, direction, there we go. It's the Entity Look. And then our Entity Look does require a target. So, as of right now, there's no target set. We can do Select Your Caster. So what we'll do is we'll say the target is up. And we're going to just add a connector on here and then just set the target to the selector caster. And so now the entity look is based on the caster, as well as the effect of the spell is on the caster. And so now we need to set a speed value. So we're going to set it to down. Then what we'll do is we'll just set a number, and we can say that, like if you notice, for example, if I set the number up to 1000, you'll notice that the potency is way above our possible potency. So we can't do that, of course. So what we'll do is we'll just set it to, can we do like 5? Yeah, 5. We can do 5. So we're going to do that. And, you know, that's within our means, let's say. And we're going to say, whoops, oh man, I didn't mean to do that. So we're going to say that we're going to call this move caster. And so let's make a spell bullet really quick. And then, of course, we'll just right click this on here. And if we were to add our gun back in here, move caster is now a spell. And we can select it here, move caster spell. And so now what we can do is, let's say we're looking off right up there. I overflowed my psionic energy, but I leveled up. So if you're wondering as to why I died when I did that, that was because, like it said, I overflowed my psionic energy. And the way that I did that is, if you take a look at the spell, The potency is within our means, however the cost is not. The cost is way above our means. So if I change this to say like 1, something that's within this cost, then that'll work. So let's say, for example, I take this spell back out now, and I right click it on the spell programmer and put it back in here. Now if I select move caster, you'll notice that I can move forward and not overflow. I think 3 is 900. So now if I equipped it, set it in here, and you'll notice that I take damage. Anytime that you cast something that has a higher cost than your maximum psi energy, that's what's going to happen. You're going to take damage. So right there I just took 3 hearts because I hadn't built up all that much psi energy. So whenever I cast something that had that massive cost, it took all the additional cost from my health. I was able to move forward farther, but you know, at the cost of my life. So but we're going to go ahead and set it then just to like 1, and oops, we'll update it. And so as you can tell, this one basically just moves us forward. And you know, like right now it's basically like it walks. But anyways, we did level up again, and you'll notice that now we unlocked tutorial 4. This has the explode trick, as well as operation entity position, vector raycast, and suppressor. So let's get into that. I'm going to go ahead and clear this. So let's go ahead and set the spell up. And what we're going to do is we're going to say it's going to be the explode trick. We want something to explode this time. Make something, you know, something actually happen. And what we're going to do is, first up, we need to set a position and a power. So for right now, we're just going to set the power to 1. And we'll go ahead and connect that up. And we'll see how far we can tweak it once we get the spell to actually check out and everything. And so next up, we need to set the position where we want this explosion to happen. So we're going to go ahead and say we want it to be a vector raycast. And basically what's going to do, a raycast is going to send out the explosion until it hits a block, up to 32 blocks away from the initial position, this being, of course, the caster. So the position for this, we're going to set it first to the entity position, and the entity position we're going to set as the caster. So there we go, that's all linked up. And then we need to set a ray, and basically the ray is going to come out from the caster, basically where they're looking, and keep going until it collides with a block. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the, I can find it here, entity look operator. And so now it's going to be based on where that entity is looking, and in this case we want to link it back up to our caster, and there we go. And now there's also this max. We'll get into that later. Right now we don't have anything that can really use that. You'll also notice the cost here, it's decently high. If we were to change this to say like 2, yeah, the potency is too high for our current gun. So we're going to stay with the 1 explosion, and then we'll go ahead and update this spell. And hopefully all this makes sense. It's a little, I feel like, I should probably change that name, right? Boom. Boom, headshot. And we'll link that up. Throw it in our gun. And now we have access to the boom shot. And so if we come out here and shoot this off, you'll notice that it blows up things. Now as of right now, the max is basically the strength of the spell. So if I was to shoot this at, say, cobblestone, you'll notice that nothing happens. It does destroy coal, though. That's interesting. I guess cobblestone's a little bit stronger than coal, right? Yeah. But it doesn't explode as large of a radius as it does with dirt. And that has to do with, of course, the way explosions in Minecraft work and block hardness and things like that. So basically we've created a spell now that blows things up. And if I was to, say, look at a pig, it doesn't do anything. And that's because, but I can't actually target the pig right now. And that's because we're doing a raycast. And the way raycast works is it goes until it hits a block. Entities do not count as a block, so we're not able to utilize those. Now we did end up leveling, and so we unlocked 3 new Three new options here. We can either go with entities, numbers, or vectors. So we'll get into that more next episode. There is a few episodes. We'll end up doing a few episodes with this, getting everything accustomed to Psi and everything. But that's because I don't really want to just jump into Psi, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, since it is a new mod, as there is a lot to the mod, and you can actually make some really cool spell effects and stuff that I've noticed whenever I've been playing around with it and all. But you kind of do want to understand the mod moving forward. So, and the way vectors and rays and all these different, because there is a lot. There's a whole lot to this mod. It's very, very easy to get confused or tied up with the mod and everything. So, if you guys prefer me to just skip it, let me know in the comments. But if even one of you guys are curious about it, I do want to cover it in detail. So, we'll end up moving a little bit faster through it, though, once I feel like you guys are comfortable with vectors and rays and all that good stuff. So once we get to the basics, it'll be a little bit smoother. But of course, this episode was primarily the basics of it, so I feel like we covered the majority of the basic things. So, but as we move forward, like if we take a look here, like for example, the entities, we'll be able to set closest to point, nearby items, nearby living, nearby enemies, so we can set like what entities to select as the targets of our spells, and the different operators, and there's a lot of different stuff there. Numbers is going to allow us to do math with our spells and make affect the outcome of things. And then vectors, of course, affects our vectors. Anyways, but we'll get into that more next episode. So I figure we'll do a few episodes back to back with Psi. I figure we'll do probably 2 or 3 episodes to get you guys accustomed to it, and then we'll make some pretty cool spells with it. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, if you guys have any questions, do let me know, and I will do my best to get those answered for you, if you have any questions regarding Psi or anything like that. So, because honestly, for me, as far as the 1.10 mods go, aside from a couple things like Super Circuit Maker, it's probably one of the most in-depth and can be tough, I think, for some people to understand with Psi, because it is very much a programming type setup. So if you guys have questions with it, please let me know, and I will try to get that answered for you. And you can always feel free to send them in messages or anything to any of the social media down below, and I will do my best to get back to you on those. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button, and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already for more daily videos. And next episode, we'll play around with Psi a little bit more. So, and we're getting to where we'll start getting into a little bit more intricate things and all that. So, but anyways, I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, as always, do take care and stay safe, and I will see you guys next time.